All right, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second Votebuilder training session. Tonight we're going to be focusing more on our on the phones aspect of Votebuilder and some of the options that you have. So we're going to be walking through on setting up virtual phone banks. And one question that we often get the last couple of days of the campaigns are we want to set up robocalls. So we're going to walk through some of the basics with that, and then jump in if we have any questions, be able to answer them as we're going. So for those, I think I know everybody on the call, but for those who don't know me, I'm Dan Kovatz. I'm the Executive Director of the County Chairs Association. Joining me again tonight is Jillian Hawkins, our Assistant Executive Director, and she's actually going to be taking the lead on the first part of the training. Just some ground rules for the session. We're going to be here for about an hour. So we ask that you are present during the entire time. Put your phone on vibrate, answer the email when we finish up. We have a bunch of different experience, from first-time admins to people who are seasoned or are just looking for a little bit of a refresher. So we ask that please be respectful of everybody. If we have questions, be respectful of each other. And then everyone's going to be able to unmute and ask questions as we're going. We have a small class tonight. So please, if we hit a point and you don't understand something and you need us to go back over it, not a problem. Ask as many questions as you can. Votebuilder is a very important system to learn. It is the single biggest advantage we have over the Republican Party. The single biggest advantage that we can to hyper target voters so that we are working smarter, not harder. But it takes 10 minutes to learn, a lifetime to master. That's the best way I can phrase it. So please ask away. And if we don't have the answer, we will find the answer and we will get it to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jillian to start us on the kind of refresher and virtual phone bank.
All right, hi everyone. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm just going to do, I think a lot of you were on the call last week where we went over how to set up a weekend canvas and a walk. So this will be a little bit of a refresher. And if you weren't on that call, then this will be a review for you so that you can catch up with what we went over last week. So when you go in to start setting up your phone bank, you're going to start it kind of similarly to how you start with setting up your canvas. You want to make a survey question. So while you're going out and contacting people, we want to have them answer those questions or give us information so that we can input that back in the system so that we can get to know our voters a little bit better. And then we also want a script. You can't actually do this phone banking without a script. So I'll show you just very briefly where we find all that and how to put that together. So the scripts and survey questions and activist codes, you can all find them here in this administrative menu. Just to go over real quick, survey questions. To create a new one, there's an option over here on the right. I've got a survey question already set to go that we'll be using tonight. Just a real simple one. Do you plan to vote for Democrats in the 2022 election? You can make it whatever you'd like. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like in here. When you go to set up this new one, these will all be fields that you'll need to fill out. So you'll need to put what cycle you're asking the question in. Most of the time you're asking something that's an action. So are they going to vote? Are they going to early vote? Are they going to request a mail-in ballot? You give it a long name, a medium name, and a short name. And those are just ways for you to find that survey question in the list and then put your question attached to it. This here at the bottom will autofill and you shouldn't have to worry about it. And so if you're a part of more than one committee, make sure you're in the right committee when you do that. But otherwise you won't have to worry about it. Once you set that up, it'll prompt you to input your responses. So I've got yes, maybe, and no here. And if we go back to the home screen, activist codes are very similar to scripts or survey questions, except they're a more permanent tag in the system. So if you say want to ask people if they want a Democratic yard sign, you can tag them with an activist code that they are someone that was willing to put a Democratic yard sign in their yard. That way, in future cycles, you can pull a list based on that activist code and call through those people very quickly. Again, you don't have to start from square one. Those are set up very similarly to survey questions. Again, you just go in here. You can see the full list of all the survey questions that we've got on here. And again, there's another option to set that up over here on the right. Once you have your survey question or your survey questions and your activist code set up, you'll go in and create a script. And we went over this last week, but again, I'll just show you. So I've got the script ready to go here for tonight. And I'll show you what that page looks like. Give it name, description, make sure it's active. If you want to, you can't delete a script in the system, but you can change it to inactive and that'll take it off your list so it's not clogging up your list of scripts. For the most part, you're going to use linear scripts. Branch scripts are, you know, depending on how a voter answers, it takes you to a different section. They can be kind of confusing. Linear is what you're going to use most of the time, and that's what it defaults to. And here is the script that I put together to show you guys tonight. This is really basic. As you're putting together the scripts, if you want an example of scripts that the IDCCA or campaigns have used in the past, you're welcome to contact us and we can give you an idea on the language for that, but I just did a real basic one for tonight. So you've got, since we're doing it by phone, we've got, you know, hi, is X person available? My name is Jillian. I'm a volunteer with the Democratic Party. Then we've got our survey question on there. Do you plan to vote for Democrats in the 2022 election? If they vote yes, I say, great, we appreciate your support. Would you like a Democratic yard? And then they can, there's an option for the person doing the phone bank to check if they want a Democratic yard sign so that I can go back later, pull people based on that activist code and make sure our sign crew gets out and puts a yard sign in their yard. So to add the script elements, you just come down here to this box and you can type the text or select your survey question or activist code. And if you want to, you can also rearrange those pretty easily. You just click on that icon there and move it around. On the right here, you'll see all of the results that you can give if someone doesn't answer the phone, or down here, if you're walking, if they are not home. Those will default to the most basic ones that we're used to seeing. But you can uncheck and check any of those that you want to use. So I'll go back to the home screen. Real quickly, we'll pull our list that we'll use to phone bank for tonight. So we'll go to this create a new list. So I am the precinct committee person here in Sangamon County for Capital 33. So if I wanted to call through the Democrats or likely Democrats in my precinct, get to know them, make sure they're going to vote for Democrats, and see where I can find some yard sign locations. I'm going to start with the county. We're in Sangamon County, Capital Township, and 33. And if you weren't on the training last time, if you click this little star icon here at the top, that'll move the category up to the top. Otherwise, you see everything in alphabetical order. That can be really useful if you've got sections on here that you use frequently to pull lists from. So if I scroll down here, there's a ton of options and a ton of categories you can use to narrow down people on your list, and clicking the star next to that will move it up to the top to make it a little bit easier for you to access. So that's why we see this at the top here. So my districts are ready to go. I don't want to talk to everybody in my precinct. I only want to talk to people with a Democratic score of 75. to 100. Generally, we consider those people very likely to strong Dems. They're with the Democratic Party on most issues. If I come over here to preview my results, I can see how many people on the list. That gives me 450 people. That's quite a big phone list. So I'm going to narrow it down a little bit further. We'll come down here to voting history. I want to talk to people who I actually know are likely to get out and vote. So I'm going to include anybody who did. We'll go down to at least. I want somebody who's voted in at least one of the last 3 general elections. So 2016, 2018, and 2020. You can also scroll down here if you want to talk to primary voters, like if they voted, and actually narrow it down by people who just voted in the Democratic Party, if you want to do that. So if I preview my results on there, that gives me 290 people. So that's a pretty manageable list for a few days of phone banking. If you come down here, other categories, so like Canvas status, if I want to remove anybody that I've already talked to throughout the month, I can exclude anybody. If I click exclude, it'll automatically fill out anybody that I've canvassed or anybody that when I called them, they were hostile, refused, said don't call me, or if they were deceased, we make sure we remove them, contact them again. And then you can actually limit that by the date here of when you canvassed them. But I haven't canvassed anybody, so we'll just go ahead and run the list as we've got it. Give it a second here. Okay, so you'll be taken to this My List page. At the top here, you can see I've got 290 people on my list and 220 phones. So that's a pretty decent list. There's some people in there, multiple people in a household, and some people just will not have a phone attached to their voter file, but 220 is still a pretty good list. Now, when you're setting up a phone bank, we are encouraging people to use the virtual phone bank feature, and kind of like Minivan, as you're going through the virtual phone bank, that data is automatically put back into the system. There's no data entry after, no messy sheets or anything like that. Everything is on the screen, and it's pretty easy to use. If you have a volunteer that just refuses to use the computer, or if you've got a big event, more people show up than you're anticipating and you run out of computers, might not be a bad idea to have printed lists. You can go to this print icon here. I'll show that real briefly in case you weren't on the call last week. You'll just choose report format. So you'll have automatically, everybody will have access to these DPI default formats. They're really easy to use. You can just choose the phone report format down here, the DPI phone report format. You pick your script. So the script that we had already set up, contacted how. We are contacting them by phone. Make sure whenever you see an option to give something a title, make sure that you give it a very descriptive title. Otherwise, you will have a million things titled My List, and you'll have to go in and try to figure out which is which. So we'll just say this is 429 phone bank. And then it will default to the sort order. You can change that. This is fine if you want to leave it like that. You'll go over to print and it will create a PDF. So once that PDF is created, it'll be over here on the welcome menu under my PDF files. So that's just a quick review of how to do that if you weren't on the call last week. But we want to do a virtual phone bank. So we'll go back to My List and we're going to come to this icon that says calls. And we've got options to set up robocalls, which we'll get into later. Predictive dialer, if you volunteered for JP's campaign or one of the congressionals, you might have used that as a volunteer. In general, we don't use that. We don't have the capacity or the funds to do predictive dialer campaigns. So virtual phone bank, predictive dialer, the system dials the phone for you. Virtual phone bank, the volunteer dials the phone. So they'll need to have either a burner phone provided by the party or their own phone in order to do this. So select virtual phone bank list and hit next. When you do that, it's going to come up with this option to either make the virtual phone bank based off the static list or use it based on the search criteria. So if you clicked static list, the list of people that I pulled just now is going to be the only people that are ever on this list for this virtual phone bank. If you save and use it based on the search criteria, it will, each time the system will re-pull that list using the criteria that you selected, and the list may change. So this is, if you're doing a phone bank for early voting, get out the vote, ballot chase, anything like that, you'll want to save and use it as search criteria, because that will automatically remove people who have already voted, who have already returned their ballot. So you don't have to waste your time contacting them.
If you set it up as a search criteria, once you call some of those people, will they come off the list and new ones be automatically added?
So they will come off the list if they vote, and the system, there is a little bit of a delay between when they vote, when that information is sent over, and when Votebuilder actually updates that. I'm not sure quite how long that delay is. It's a couple days, usually close to the election. So yes, they will drop off the list as they vote. Anybody who has been contacted by the virtual phone bank, whether they were canvassed or whether they weren't home and the volunteer clicked that they weren't able to reach them, they won't come back up through the virtual phone bank unless you send it to another round. And I'll show how to do that after we get the virtual phone bank set up. But yeah, if you save it as a search criteria, people who, if your search is set up to remove anybody who has early voted or anybody who has returned their vote by mail ballot, then the system will drop those people off. So I'm going to set it up as a static list for now. So we'll click continue on there, and you'll be taken to this page. So again, try to give it a descriptive name so you can find it later. I'll just call it 429 phone bank for now. You can give it a description so that if you go back through, you can see what the purpose for that was. The script here popped up automatically because I was using it earlier, but you can scroll through and find your script. Start date, we're going to start it today. The system requires you to put in an end date, and the phone bank will not be available anymore to use after that end date. But there is a way that you can go in prior to the end date and extend that. So if you just want to make it available for a month for now, and then if it gets close to that time and you're still making calls, you can extend that end date. For sharing, we want to make it available on OpenVPB. That will make sure that anybody can access it. Anybody can access a virtual phone bank if they have an action ID, which is completely free to set up. You don't have to set them up as a Votebuilder user. So volunteers, all they have to do is use their email address and set up a password. These settings down here, you can make the phone bank only available during certain times of the day. So if you've got volunteers calling from home, some people aren't comfortable coming in a group setting right now to do phone banks, you can make sure that that phone bank isn't going to be available for someone to log in at 2 in the morning and start making calls. I don't know if there's ever been a problem with this before, but if you've got some volunteers that you're not as familiar with, it might be a good idea to go ahead and set up that availability so that they can't access the list before or after a certain time. Time limit and contact limit, unless you want to limit somebody's access to the phone bank, don't worry about that. Householding, this is convenient because if we've got a landline phone, that if somebody else answers, if you've selected the system to show people in the household that are either in your list or are listed as also in household in the system, then the volunteer will know to ask for that person instead. So if the system says, you know, you're calling Steve, but Jane answers, then the volunteer will have Jane's name to ask for her instead. So I like to click show only people in household from the virtual phone bank list. So if there's somebody else in the household that we are trying to reach, name will appear as well, and we know to ask for them. For skipping, I like to check allow users to skip contacts in households. That's kind of up to you. If you don't click that, they won't be able to move any further if they come across somebody that they don't want to call. So if you get somebody that pops up on the phone bank and you know them and you don't particularly want to call them, if this is unchecked, then you wouldn't be able to skip them and you wouldn't be able to go any further. So I like to include that. A case where you wanted to have that unclicked is if you've got a problem with a volunteer that's logging into the virtual phone bank and just clicking skip on a bunch of people till they find someone they know. That's a waste of time. So just, there's a way to see the Canvas results afterwards, and I'll show you that. So just watch that, but otherwise I like to have that one selected. And then we've got exclude anyone who has early or absentee voted, and exclude anyone who has already voted on election day. So over here on the right are some display options for the phone bank. Let me move my Zoom controls for myself here. So we've got designated contact that'll pop up if you've got volunteers working remotely, you can put your phone number and email in there so that they have your contact info right there for if they have a problem. And then Votebuilder will go ahead and check some default options for the display. So you can just go down and see what we've got there. So their precinct, their polling location, polling address, districts will all pop up there. Editable contact details. It's a good idea to allow volunteers to make notes. Those notes will be available after they close out of the virtual phone bank. So you can go back and see, you know, if there was somebody who had a very particular problem that they wanted to follow up on. Allowing people to make those notes makes it easier for you to go back in the system, find that person and reach back out to them. And additional contact details. So any additional activist codes, it's helpful information when you're calling through to see if there's someone in the past that already said, for example, that they want a yard sign, then that will pop up so that the volunteer can kind of fine tune their conversation with them. So I'll show you here kind of what it looks like when you've got that set up. And you can preview it so that you have an idea of how it will display before you actually save and move on. So this is how the screen will pop up for your volunteers. So you can look through, we've got the phone number, the districts here, the script, and you can scroll through and make sure that that's everything that you want to display for them before you click save. We've got the script over here. That looks pretty good to me. Okay. So when you're done setting it up, what the system's going to do is they're going to give you a link, and you'll see the link here on this open VPB. That is the link that you can send out to volunteers that are participating in this phone bank. So again, if they're a volunteer, they don't have a Votebuilder account currently, they're not set up on your Votebuilder, that's okay. The system's going to prompt them to make an action ID. And all they need is an email address and a password, and they're good to go. And it's pretty easy to set up. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that to show you guys what the virtual phone bank system looks like if you've never used it before. This is what it'll look like when you or a volunteer logs in. If I didn't have an account, this is where it would prompt me to create one. Gives you little bit of info here. And I click Get Started. And this is what you will see as you're making calls. So it's basically what we see on the call sheets, just on the computer screen. And we can, if we can't reach them, they click there, they can choose how they weren't able to reach them. And it gives them a script to go through, and they can actually fill out the responses as we're going through the script. Once they're completed with that, let's say they're not sure about supporting Democrats, so we're not going to ask them about a yard sign, then we'll just click this save and next call button. It'll pull up the next voter and we're good to go. So one of the neat things about virtual phone banks is that you can have multiple people calling off the same list, and the system will shuffle the list so that we're not all accidentally calling the same people. So as we're calling through, if someone's not able to reach someone, the system will move that phone number, bump it down. We're not double calling anybody. Now, if we get through a phone bank, a typical phone bank response rate is not super high. It's, I think, about between 10 and 12% typically. So if we want to call through, let me save this real quick. If we want to call through the list again, there is a way to restart the list. So once you save it, you will be brought to this screen and you can see all of the phone banks that are currently available. So I did a couple of test ones here that you can see. You can click on here, you can edit it from there. If you lose the link, you can go back in and copy the link on there. As people are calling, you'll see the list size, you'll see how many calls have been attempted, how many have been completed, meaning that there was either like a not home response given or they actually spoke to them and canvassed them, and the number of them that actually filled out either the survey or the activist codes. So if we're calling through and we only reached 10% of the voters, but we want to give it another try, I'm going to try calling through again to see if we can reach a little bit more. What you're going to do, they keep moving the Zoom controls for myself. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to select on here. You'll click this check mark box, and then the button that says refresh and send to next round will pop up. And it takes a minute, and it'll automatically label it what you labeled the phone bank as in round 2, and that will remove anybody who you've already called, and that way you can start fresh from anybody that you weren't able to talk to and call them again. And if you do save the list as a search feature, so if it's something like you're calling people to get them to return their mail-in ballots, it's a good idea to refresh and send to the next round every few days to make sure that those early voters or those people who have already returned their ballot get bumped off the list, and that we are calling people that we weren't able to reach to make sure that we reach out to them and make sure they vote. So that is all there is to it. Are there any questions?
Anybody has any questions, go ahead and you can either unmute or put them in the chat, and we will we'll answer them as we're coming through here. So the virtual phone bank has become pretty much the standard now with the campaigns, mostly because of the pandemic, where people are just not comfortable coming into a campaign office or county party office, where they want to be able to work from home to do their voter contact. So being able to access the virtual phone banks and being able to see, all right, how many calls are we making per individual or individual list are really important as admins, so we can see what kind of voter contact we're attempting. it also had, and Jillian pointed out, we can have multiple people calling on a list. We had this happen with some of the vote by mail issues that happened in the fall election, where you'd have 30 or 40 people statewide. It wouldn't have to be specific to a county, wouldn't even have to be specific to a congressional district, but statewide, calling on a list, and you can call through it pretty quickly if you get a lot of people that are wanting to volunteer to help.
Yeah,
I do have, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, when you refresh and send a list to the next round to bump up anybody who you weren't able to reach, the link to the virtual phone bank stays the same. So you won't have to reset that link. You won't even have to tell people that you sent it to the next round. Nothing will change on the volunteer side. I just wanted to mention that.
I did have a quick question. When you set up your list originally about the type of people that you want to call, like where I live in Belvedere, we have a Chrysler plant, so we have a lot of union members. Can you specify union home? Is that like one of our options or not really?
So that's something that,
so.
Unless they've already been tagged with an activist code as, union member, it's very difficult to identify that information. Now, there is a system that does do that. It's called the LAN, L-A-N, which is the Labor Activation Network. And the Illinois AFL-CIO and most of labor unions work off of that system, where they have a list of the union membership. That's not information that's readily available to us, but we're able to kind of target if we know, okay, at that Chrysler plant, workers normally live within 10 to 15 miles of the plant. Then, as Jillian, if you can see on her screen here, we've got some of the scoring choices. You can do the search by the address like she's showing, and do it at 15 miles, something like that, radius from a zip code. And then a score that would likely be a union member. So like an 85% and above Democrat support score, potentially.
Got it. And could I plug in the address? Because Belvedere is all one zip code. Could I plug in the address of the Chrysler plant and then 15 miles from the Chrysler plant?
You can.
Okay.
So, Mariel, you had a question about, you don't have Votebuilder on your computer.
Oh, I don't.
Real easy answer. Nobody has Votebuilder on their computer because it is a web-based program. So votebuilder.com is the web address where you would go, and then to get your initial access, going through your county chair to get you set up for your access into the system. And that would set up your action ID for your access. Okay. And I'm going to So I'm going to talk, the next part is probably the most asked question we get the last 2 to 3 weeks of the campaign is everybody decides they want to run robocalls and they want to know, is there a way to do it through Votebuilder? Is it something that's easily, accessible? And it's a very easy thing to do, but I will preface it that you do have a couple of steps that you have to go through to get this set up. The one thing that we offer any county chair, any county party in the state is the County Chairs Association will run any county party's robocall or any county party supported candidate's robocall at cost. So we would, work with you on the parameters of the robocall. We would set it up in our system, run it on the date and time that you select, and then we would just invoice you. So if if this isn't something you're interested in setting it up on your own, no problem. You could always call the office or shoot us an email, and we can get that set up for you. So to set up a robocall, you're going to set up the list like Jillian already mentioned. I won't go back through that, but you're going to want to make sure that your robocall list is a healthy size list. You don't want it to be like 10 numbers because that'll burn through really quickly. Robocalls themselves, they do come at a cost, and it depends on the amount of time the call actually is. It's about a penny a call. If you go over 30 seconds, that's kind of my rule of thumb with robocalls, is about that 30-second mark. If you go over 30 seconds, then it's like a penny and a half a call, and then it goes up from that. When you're putting this together, before we kind of get into the technical side of this, write out your script for your robocall. If you as the county chair, the admin, the candidate, have that person either practice it, get used to saying it, because you can record it either on your own, to a computer program. You can record it on your phone and upload it. There's a couple different ways to do that, but get used to how you want it presented, and that way, so when you do go to finally record it, it's ready to go when you do record it. The last part that everybody forgets, and what causes the biggest delay in getting these ready to go, is at the end of the robocall, whoever is paying for the call, whether it's the Boone County Democratic Party, whether it's the COVATS for County Board PAC, whatever the committee is that is paying for the call, you have to say paid for by whatever that PAC name is. And that's the legal requirement for running these robocalls. The next thing with robocalls is voters tend to not particularly like them. They are effective if used properly, but you will get people that will call back and say, I'm on the do not call list. Why am I getting this robocall? Robocalls from political operations or candidates are not subject to the do not call list. Same thing with phone banking. If they ask, well, why are you calling me? We are not subject to do not call list. We are not selling anything. We are not soliciting for any goods or services. We are encouraging people to exercise their constitutional right to vote and asking them to vote for our candidates. So if you get somebody that pushes back on that, please push back on them that we are not doing anything that's illegal, and there's no such thing as a do not call list when it comes to the political side of things. That said, so you've got your list set up here. You're going to click on calls, similar to how we did virtual phone bank, but for robocalls, you're going to do set up robocall using CallFire. That's the system that Votebuilder uses for your calls. And of course, it logged me out real quick. Give me a second. Okay, so like Jillian has said last week and today, you want to make sure you are properly, labeling what the call is, similar to your lists. The way I normally do it is I will name whatever the robocall is when you are supposed to be wanting that call to go out. So if we want the call to go tomorrow morning, I'll do it as 4:30, 21, Sangamon, check-in. Okay. So this is going to, give you a list of your total non-cell phone numbers. The one thing that we cannot do robocalls to is cell phones, not unless that is the only available number in the system. The way the law is set up, robocalls do have to go to landlines. Now that may change in the future depending on landlines continuing to trend downward and more cell phone uses come up. The system also does have a lot of cell phone numbers in there where that's the only number for the voter. And if that's the case, that's who's going to get the robocall. So then it'll ask for the ID or the caller ID number. This can be any number that you want the call to originate from. Ideally, you want this to be a campaign headquarters number, candidate's cell phone number or personal number, something that is a legitimate line that they can, that a voter, if they were to hit, return the call, they're going to call an actual number back. It does not have to be, if you are setting it up at home, it doesn't have to be your number. It could be even a voice over internet type number, as long as it is a legitimate number. So let me show you this here. So if you put in a number here that is not set up in the system, this is what's going to pop up where it says, please call this number 888-408-3479. That anytime we do that number or we set up a robocall, if it is an unrecognized number in the system, you're going to have to call from the number that it's originating. So the number I just put in there is my cell phone number. So if I were to be sending this out from my cell phone, I would have to call that number from this number to verify that it's a legitimate phone line. All right. Takes 5 seconds. Once you make the call, it says this number has been verified. Thank you. It hangs up. But you have to have that number verified before we can move forward with anything here. So I will do our office number since we've done that number before. So here's where we do the recordings. If this is you're calling just to get or you're setting up the recording for the first time, you're going to click on new recording here. And then from there, again, you're going to name it. And then it's going to give you, it's going to prompt you either to upload a WAV or an MP3 file. Those are the two files that it'll recognize. The system could just call you right now if you are ready to record it now. The one that I always use, and if you ask the Chairs Association to set up a call, this is how we would set it up: is we would do receive a call-in number and PIN through email. So I always overestimate on the time of my call, so I put 45 seconds. I put my email in there. You click save. These instructions that you're seeing on the screen right here, these are going to be emailed to you. So you're going to have your call-in number, you'll have a PIN, and then instructions on how to record the call. So if you are just the admin and your county chair is asking to set up these calls, and they're going to record the call, all you need to do is forward them this email, and they will be able to follow the instructions to get the call recorded. Once the call is recorded, it'll pop up here in your list of live recordings. So as you can see, we do a ton of robocalls for different county parties and different candidates throughout the state. So you can see different things that we've done. Let me find one. Okay, so I'll use this one as an example. You have to select two different robocalls here. One is if live call, when the call gets made, the voter picks up the phone, says hello, and then the recording plays. And then the other one is if it goes to a voicemail or answering machine, then it'll play from here. Now, to double check to make sure that everything sounds the way it's supposed to, you click on listen, it'll download this, the robocall to your computer, and you can play it.
Hello, this is Billy Halstead with the Peoria County Democrats. I'm calling to let you know starting tomorrow, Tuesday, October 20th.
So not sure if everybody can hear that, but that way you can kind of make sure that the system is playing properly with it. Okay. So let me, you know what, let me pull that one back up again. I can let everybody listen to how that one went to give you an idea.
Hello, this is Billy Halstead with the Peoria County Democrats. I'm calling to let you know starting tomorrow, Tuesday, October 20th, early voting will be at the Hannah City Methodist Church from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's tomorrow, Tuesday, October 20th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Early voting at the Hannah City Methodist Church, 12208 West Farmington Road. Please get out and exercise your right to vote and support our Democratic candidates. And please also vote yes for Supreme Court Justice Tom Kilbride. He's a fair and honest judge. This phone call is paid for by the Peoria County Democrats. Have a great and safe day. Thank you.
Yep. And as Jillian just remembered, you always have to remember the paid for tag at the end. That's the one thing we always end up having to re-record calls because we don't have that on there. So once you've got your call selected, you're going to click next. This is where you get to schedule when you want your call to run. So we want to run this call tomorrow. You want to, it gives you an option to start the calls at any point during the day, 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. Good rule of thumb is always starting at 10 a.m. and running. I don't like to run robocalls past 7 p.m., especially if you are running for like a local office or you're trying to do a early vote push. I normally try to run them through the day to make sure that we're getting as much coverage as we can, but then stopping it by 7 o'clock that evening. Now, the great thing that the system always also does is we heard the recording earlier, but the system allows you to set up a test where you can hear how it's going to come across on the phone. And let me go ahead. I'll put my phone number in here. And then the other thing, it doesn't count on the cost, but I always include this number in the call list. This way, you as the administrator have a way to know when the call is done, because this will be the last number on the list of calls. So at 6:40, if you get called, get the robocall, then you know that the robocall has been finished. So you put your number in here, you click test now. It'll pop up a little thing that'll say you'll be sent in a couple of minutes. You'll need to answer and say hello. So if you can see, my phone's going off. Hello?
Hello, this is Billy Halstead with the Peoria County Democrats. I'm calling to let you know starting tomorrow, Tuesday, October 20th.
Okay, so that way you're able to test everything, make sure it sounds right on the phone. If something doesn't sound right, you're able to then go back and make the changes, either re-record it or upload a new file, whatever you need to, but this way you're able to test it before it goes out to voters. So the last thing I'll go into is the one part of this that where we kind of get tripped up on. It's how we actually go about paying for the call itself. So if you are brand new to setting up a robocall and you are the county chair or the county admin, it is going to ask you to set up a new card before you can purchase time. So it'll give you the option here, create a new or enter a new card, and then you'll put in your county party debit card or credit card information, and that way it saves it on file. The one thing to keep in mind though with it is you have to, if you are the county chair and you set it up under you and you call your admin and tell them, hey, go ahead and run the robocall, your admin's not going to be able to run the robocall because the credit card is only attached to the user. You have to set it up for each credit card has to be set up for each user. So if you are going to have multiple people setting up robocalls, make sure you are setting them up in the system for their card for each one. So once you are able to, you'll select your account, and then it'll come up if you've run robocalls in the past and not every call goes through, the system will credit your account. So we've got, almost 16 bucks in credit. So I'm required to purchase time to send these calls. So what you would do is you would click purchase time and go through the process of selecting. You have to buy time for robocalls in increments of $5. So for this, I would probably buy $75 worth, make sure that I've got enough to cover just in case if I need to run more, I've got a little bit more cushion than on the other side. Once you've got the time purchased, then it'll kick over to the approval screen where there is an approval that you'll have to go through that you're not using this system for, or you're using it only for election purposes. You're not using it to call or to sell or solicit goods or services. You're not using it for personal use, not using it for any harassment purposes. It's a bunch of different things that you have to check off for the approval process to be able to move forward. Once you're able to, you click approve on that, you'll get an email saying your call is approved, it's being scheduled, and then the system will automatically generate that call and put it into the rotation for when you have it scheduled. Then, and I saw we had a question come in about effectiveness, and I'll get to that when I finish up here. So if you want to check to see when you send out the call and you've gotten the call in the end, that you were the last call, you want to check to see how many people actually, received the call, how effective it was. If you go back to your main menu here, you come down to phone services, you're going to click on robocalls. This will then list out every robocall that your committee has set up. So it's not just limited to if you set it up, it could be your county chair, could be anybody else that has done it in the past. And you're gonna have a couple different things on here to look at. So let me minimize that. You're gonna have the date the call was made, what the status was, if it's been sent or if it's been scheduled, number of call numbers total, number attempted. These are the live recipients. So voter picked up the phone, said hello, answering machines that are voicemails. And this other is if the system itself, like we have people who don't have voicemail set up, or you have individuals that the system couldn't record it on voicemail. That's what the other comes up as. We don't have a way to track how long the voter listens to the call, or if they listen to the full duration of it. So this is just my tracks if they answered or if it went to voicemail and how many were completed. Good rule of thumb again is if you do robocalls, keep it under 30 seconds. You've got to be able to remember that your voter, the average voter is only going to pay attention for probably the first 5, maybe 10 seconds. So if it is something where you are doing this for a candidate, you've got to get the candidate's name out there quick and say, hi, my name's Dan Kovatz. I'm running for county board and election day is next week, or whatever the call is. Or, hi, this is Dan Kovatz. I'm with the Sangamon County Democrats, reminding you to return your vote by mail ballot before election day. Whatever that main ask is, you've got that first 5 to 10 seconds before a voter is more than likely going to hang up. So let's see here. We had a question on how effective is this compared to texting or phone banking? personal opinion, and Jillian, you know, feel free to jump in on this too. I would say, let me stop sharing my screen here. I would say, honestly, phone banking is most effective. That is our direct voter contact and our best opportunity to have meaningful conversations with a voter. Texting programs are becoming more and more popular because the high contact rate with a voter. And I think the last report I saw is on average, 80% of people who receive a text message on any kind of a text message are going to at least open the text message and read it. They might delete it right away, but they're at least going to read it. Texting programs are very effective if they are done properly. You cannot do a text message the weekend before election day and say, hey, get out and vote on Tuesday. That more than likely is going to fall on deaf ears. If you are running a texting program a month, 2 months out, and you are consistently texting every week or every 2 weeks, texting the voter of, hey, just to remind you, election day is coming up. Do you need, are you interested in voting by mail? Early voting hours are this time and are at City Hall. A consistent texting program has proven more and more effective, and I think we're going to see that bear out in the 2022 cycle. I would not be surprised if we see all of the statewide candidates and the congressional candidates are using a strong texting program. The robocalls, I would say, are probably the least effective, but they're the last thing that we think of, hey, we've got an extra $300-400 in the pack. We want to try and get one more voter contact so they hear the candidate's name or hear election day is Tuesday. We'll just do this as an add-on. I would not look at this as a primary way to turn out voters. It is only going to be an add-on for voters. And I think we've seen that kind of consistent across the board, that it can drive reminding people to return their vote by mail ballots, reminding people of it's election day, but it is not going to move somebody who we have not already been in touch with beforehand.
And just to add on to that, I would say that the things that are most effective are the things that take the longest and require the most manpower. So I'm a data nerd, so I like to look at recent data that they've pulled on how we actually persuade voters. The top of the list is direct voter contact. So we've got canvassing, face-to-face, talking to your neighbors is top of the pile there. Obviously that takes a long time. Then we've got phone banking and then on down. And I think robocalls are down towards the bottom of that, but they're a good way. Voters need more than one contact in order to remember a candidate's name and actually vote for them. So they're a good way just to get one last hit. They hear the candidate's name or they hear vote Democrat. They hear that, oh yeah, Tuesday's election day. So it's a good last parting shot in that way.
Yeah, and again, this is an add-on and a good way. If you were the county party admin for Votebuilder, I would look at this, and this is something I've done in my county in the November general election and what we just did in the consolidated general election this past April. I would look at trying to tag anybody who has requested a vote by mail ballot and then running a robocall to them once a week, reminding them to return their vote by mail ballot. These are people that are more than likely already going to vote Democrat and they've already requested a ballot, so we know they're going to vote. We just have to make sure that they're getting that ballot back in. And that is a kind of ongoing thing that you can do with a robocall or a texting program or a phone banking program to have that type of meaningful contact. So Annette, you had just a quick frame of reference on if you make 1,000 robocalls at 30 seconds, yeah, it's going to come out to about $10. So it is probably the most cost-efficient way to do voter contact and to reach a large number of people in a very short amount of time. So we're at the hour mark, and I want to be very mindful of everybody's time this evening. Is there any other questions that we have just on these two aspects with phones, with Votebuilder? Okay, well, thank you again for joining us tonight, everyone. We've recorded tonight's session. We're gonna be posting it to our YouTube page as an unlisted, private link, and we will send that out along with last week's info. So if you have any questions about Votebuilder going forward, please reach out to us. We are here to offer any technical support that we can. And again, if we don't have an answer, we will find it for you. And we are going to be doing ongoing training with this as we get into the next election cycle so that we can get as many of our county parties working on Votebuilder as possible. So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.